Hello, this is Dave Holman. I'm giving you an author update about the Kickstarter project for Cyberfire, my action novel about climate change and cyber war. I'm horribly sick today, and I've avoided doing any sort of video in the past couple days for fear of how bad it would sound, so forgive me. But this is one of those, do or die projects, and maybe I'll feel a little better afterwards. I first just wanted to start with thanking everyone who's backed this project so far. There's 25 of you so far after just a week's time, and you each really have lifted my spirits and made this a lot closer to getting published. So thank you to Bonnie Ross, David Sterling, Steve Smith, Cameron Nordholm, Claudia Reisch, Cynthia Burney, Jason Carpenter, Kate Zerwas Graham, Caitlin Canfield, Benjamin Burney, Susan Ademeyer, Molly Carr, guest 14035, etc., and another one. Aaron LeConte, Laura Allred, Arnie Radke, Colin Witherell, Sylvain Rousseau, Eric Holman, Evil to Win, Nick Pascarella, Charles Ansel, Jason Lord, and the Creative Fund. That's really awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. What I hope to do when my voice is not so scratchy is read some of the early chapters to you and give you little video updates like this. What I want to do now is explain a little bit about the title of the book, which from the time that I conceived of it in 2012 to the day before I launched the Kickstarter was always Epocalypse. E kind of being short for environment, economics, and apocalypse obviously being very bad, and imagining sort of a very realistic scenario of what can go wrong in our modern times. So I looked online and saw pretty quickly that there was an apocalypse book published already. There was a second one, there's a third one, and there's probably a fifth one and fourth one. There were a lot of different works of art called Epocalypse already. The domains were taken, and how in the years of procrastinating, writing, editing, rewriting, re-editing, I had failed to do this sort of market study, I'm not sure. So I started scratching my head and said, well, I better not confuse everyone and have a colon after my title and try to distinguish myself from the other apocalypsi, or however you pluralize that, to a new and different title. I thought about something short that doesn't exactly explain the subject of the book, but catches your attention and relates to what the book is about. There's a similar work here that you may want to read if you're into this sort of book called 1 Second After. What does 1 second after mean? And it's the story of how society basically collapses after a very strong electromagnetic pulse disables all electronics, with few exceptions across the US. So an interesting kind of what-if sort of book that's actually pretty popular in the intelligence and law enforcement communities for fairly realistic, maybe doomsday scenario, maybe just really bad scenario like the hurricanes and wildfires and so forth we've been experiencing recently. And that's what Cyberfire explores. We have a record heat wave across the Southwest. What would realistically happen in that scenario in 120-degree heat? Not anything out of the ordinary, really, for a heat wave in Arizona. If we all lost power and we had to rely on backup generation, and some of that fails, of course, when you have to rely on it, what would happen to society? What would happen to the elderly? Things of that nature. It's important to think about, and I hope that you'll consider supporting the project on Kickstarter. Just Google Kickstarter Cyberfire, and you'll come right to the page, and I really appreciate your support. Even if you can't monetarily back the project, if you don't mind sharing the Kickstarter link on your social media with your friends in person, that'll be a huge help. Wind of my sails to help me recover and push through the hump. We're 35% to goal, and thank you very much for helping us